You are now watching Kevin Wall.
You feel me? Just because the media doesn't cover it anymore, just because people don't talk about it as much anymore, just because we're, becoming, like we're coming to this space where, television and society is making it feel as though the effects of a worldwide pandemic on your mental health is something that's, becoming or beginning to be far behind us. I wanted to say, man, it's okay if you still feeling some type of way. What's up, y'all? It's Kevin Wall, and welcome to the channel, man. You know what I'm saying? If you haven't already, like this video right here, subscribe to this channel. You know what I mean? Help it grow for me, And today I'd like to speak on the mental state, or the place that we are in as a society post-COVID. You know what I mean? I think that, especially for men, I want to speak to the perspective, I want to speak to men, because it's already hard, right? It's hard being a man in America. It's hard being a man where you're given the task of being a provider, of being a caregiver, of being the head of the household, of being all of these things, right? And, with the pandemic, a lot of us, we lost our fortunes. We lost our, means to survive. We were, a lot of these things, a lot of businesses folded. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people were fired. A lot of people were laid off. A lot of things happened to men financially during COVID and everything that was going on with the pandemic. And I want to speak to where our mental and our spiritual state is right now. I feel like just because the media doesn't cover it anymore, just because people don't talk about it as much anymore, just because we're, becoming, like we're coming to this space where, television and society is making it feel as though the effects of a worldwide pandemic on your mental health is something that's, becoming or beginning to be far behind us. I wanted to say, man, it's okay if you still feeling some type of way. It's hard when, we're living in a space now where people aren't talking about it. So it's making you feel as though you should get over it, or you shouldn't be still going through the ill effects of coming out of a pandemic. And again, if you're someone like me who lost their financial base through COVID and had to start all over again, that affected you. It affected you in a crazy way, especially if you were the type of man who was the head of the household, who was the breadwinner, who was bringing all, the money to the table, or majority of the money to the table, or, your family was looking to you to be that component, to be that financial piece, that stability to the household. And those things you lost, and you had to scratch and climb your way back up. That does something to someone mentally. It does something to a man emotionally. And I don't, I'm not discarding what women went through, but I only want to speak from a male perspective because, number one, I am a man, and I know how it affected me. It changed me, you know what I mean? Like having to start from ground zero, and prior to that, always feeling like a person that had everything figured out. I was that type of guy. I always felt like I had it figured out. I was always in control of everything. It was never a time where, from a financial standpoint, I didn't handle my business. I was always looked at as the very responsible person. And, I wore that like a badge of honor. That was my strong suit. You know what I mean? Like, as a man, you have to self-reflect, and you have to look at your qualities and pick out the things that you're good at and the things that you aren't good at. And for me, man, like I say, I'm not the most romantic guy ever. I'm not the most emotional guy in certain aspects, depending on what it is. But I know what my strong suit is. My strong suit is I'm a provider. I'm going to get out there, I'm going to go get it, and I'm going to provide and add stability to the household. And when this pandemic hit, it hit out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Nobody was prepared for it. And it put not only, me, but I know it put a lot of people in a space where they didn't know where they were going. They didn't have control over what was going on. And again, I had to scratch and start from square one, man. Like I'll tell y'all, I was working in the airline industry for over 13 years prior to COVID. So I was working there for 13 years. I was dug in. In some ways, I can say I was complacent. I was content. You know what I mean? I was topped out in my pay. You know, I knew exactly how many hours, how much time I had to put in to provide for my family and hold the household down. And I just was in a space of comfortability. I was chilling. I'm relaxed. And when this popped off and I lost my job, you know what I mean? Not only that, going through seeing people lose their lives. I know at least, like, I know personally, I can say off top of my head without thinking too much, 3 people that I know that lost their lives due to COVID-19. You feel me? Being quarantined, being locked in the house, then losing my job, it put me in a space where mentally and emotionally, it damaged me. I'm not gonna lie. You feel me? Like I said, like, men, we have our pride, and our pride is associated with our strong suits, the things that we know that we bring to the table, the things that we could bet our bottom dollar. If I don't do anything else good, I can do this. And that was my strong suit. So for me to lose my financial base, you gotta understand it did something. It definitely was mental and emotional anguish, because it's like, damn, I'm not Superman no more. It's like, if Superman can't fly or catch a bullet, you know what I mean? Who is he? If Aquaman can't swim, then who the fuck, like, who is Aquaman? You feel me? So that's how I'm feeling. Like, damn, I can't provide. And it turned the dynamics in my household around to where as though I had to lean on my girl financially. And these are things that, you know, as a man, you should be comfortable. You know, as a man and or someone that's in a serious relationship, you should be comfortable with these things. But at the same time, that's easier said than practiced. You know what I mean? It's still hard as a man to, even if you are in a serious relationship where you have been the breadwinner and things get a little shaky, whereas though your mate, your wife, your girl, you know, is, you know, there and they have to pick up the finances until you get back on your feet, it's still hard to go through it when you a man and you got your pride. And that's why I want to speak specifically to the men, because just because the media don't speak on it doesn't mean that you're still not recovering from that. Just because society is acting like they're moving on, like, you know, people don't even talk about the vaccine as much anymore, let alone the mental anguish that was attached to the pandemic and everything that we went through emotionally and mentally. And we seeing like the after effects. People are speaking about mental health more so now than ever. And I have to assume that this pandemic had a lot to do with a lot of people now struggling with mental health. And I'm speaking to men because a lot of men lost their finances. And I want to emphasize that because, you know, they in the media and everything and on social media and how people talking, everybody's talking about a pandemic, but everybody didn't make money during a pandemic. You feel me? And everybody didn't come up. Everybody didn't start their businesses. Everybody didn't become lit. It's a lot of people that's struggling still, and there's a lot of people that struggle then, you know. And as a man, I don't want you to feel, I want to say that I don't want men out there who struggled through the pandemic, I don't want you to feel less than a man because you didn't lie, you didn't get your PPP loan and turn up and get lit and have a pandemic and all this bullshit they be telling you. Don't get that twisted. A lot of people struggling, so you're not alone in that. You're not the only one that struggled. Yeah, I had some PPP money, but my life expenses, the way my shit was set up, like, that shit didn't help me significantly, you know what I mean? And it ran out, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't abuse it to the point where I just had it forever. It was a point where that shit cut off and I had to go out there and find a job and fend for myself and try to get back on my feet, you know what I mean? Working odd jobs, doing shit that's degrading below my level. You gotta understand, like, I'm a person that got more than 15, 16 years worth of work experience under my belt. So I'm not just going to be a cashier or something at Acme or something like that. And it's not even about a pride thing. My life is not set up for Acme, you know what I mean? Like for a ShopRite paycheck or some shit like that. My life not set up like that. I gotta make a certain amount of money to be sustainable in my household. You know what I mean? So men, don't feel no type of way because you didn't ball out of control or you didn't turn up during the pandemic, right? That's number one. Then number two, men, I don't want you to don't feel no type of way if you're still trying to figure this shit out. You know what I mean? Like, That shit happened in 2020. So now it was 2023. We're coming up on 3 years. You're dealing with something that humanity didn't have to deal with, which is a worldwide pandemic. Humanity didn't have to deal with this type of shit for over 100 and something years. It's a peculiar situation. It's a rarity. It's something that is going to take time for you as a man. And I only want to speak to men because the pandemic was aligned with us, with people losing their financial base. And so often men associate being providers, that it's associated with our pride, with our dignity, or our definition as a man. We pride ourselves in being providers. So I'm not excluding the pain and suffrage that women went through, but I heard an old saying, right? Women can afford to make mistakes. Women can afford to kind of, be off balance a little bit financially. Us as men, we aren't, especially if you're a husband, especially if you're a dad and you got children and people looking up to you. Everybody's looking to you to be that financial base, to be the one that figures things out when it comes to stability from a financial standpoint. So as a man who went through it myself, I want to speak to men. I want you to know that just because you didn't turn up a 6-figure business during the pandemic don't mean that you're still not a good guy. It doesn't mean that you're still not the man. Just because you're still struggling. Because again, I lost over 15 years worth of work experience, and it ended like that. I didn't go to college. I didn't have a college degree. You know what I mean? Like, I worked a 9 to 5. No one foresaw. I was unable to foresee that this pandemic would affect me personally the way it did, and as much as it did, right? So everybody doesn't have a college degree. Everybody doesn't have the experience to bounce right back on their feet if they got laid off, if they got fired, if their company folded, right? And I don't want you as a man to feel like because you're still struggling 3 years later to find some ground level, right? Or find or reestablish the foundation that you lost through this fucking pandemic. How it affected you mentally, how would it affect you emotionally? Does it make you less than a man? We see a lot of shit, like a lot of people saying, like, if you can't bounce back at a certain time, you not this, you not that, you're not a hustler, you not this, you not that. Man, listen, bro, you got to give yourself grace. You feel me? You got to give yourself grace, and you got to give yourself time, right? You got to understand the same amount of time, whatever you had going on, and it took for you to build yourself up to that point. You can't be hard on yourself thinking that you're going to snap, and just because the world is saying that the pandemic is over and everything is back to normal, that you should be exactly right back to normal wherever you was prior to COVID. Life don't work like that. I just wanted to speak to men from that aspect and let you know it does not make you less than a man just because at this point, because the world has cut off the dialogue associated with the pandemic, that means that because you aren't making a certain amount of money that you're less than a man, or if because you didn't think of something else. I'll let y'all in on, right? I tried a trucking business. It's disgusting the amount of money that I put into this business, this trucking business, right? I'm one of the people who tried to start my own personal business during the pandemic, and that folded, right? So not only, right, I lost my job that I had for over 13 years through the pandemic. I also created. First, I manifested. You gotta understand, I did so much research, manifestation, just focusing on it, learn all this information. I had everything down when it comes to a trucking business. I wanted to start a box truck business. I had a Hino 267, which is the best kind of box truck you could get. I had it for under 200,000 miles. Crossed my T's and dotted all my I's. I did everything I was supposed to do, and I had back in money saved just for if things happened to the truck or if it was any kind of maintenance and all that. And lo and behold, the truck was just a lemon. I shook my dice and I crapped out, and I lost over $50,000 in that business altogether. between how much I paid for the truck, how much the maintenance was, fuel and all that. Like right now, like where the economy is right now, how the gas prices and the fuel prices is, I couldn't imagine being in a box truck business or any trucking business, rather, for that matter, right now. With like I would go to the gas station, right, and just look at these fuel prices, $8, $9, $10, and I'm just like, yo, I know it gotta be a bloodbath out there right now. I know that people in this trucking industry is suffering and losing their businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So it's tough times, man. It's tough times for everybody. But again, I want to speak to men because don't allow that to break your spirit. Keep your morale up. Know that anything that you have achieved in the past, you can get it again. That's the biggest thing that you have to take and hold dear to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, again, I always was used to having. I always had prior to the pandemic. And being in a space for the first time in my life where I didn't have, I lost it. I didn't have a car. I didn't have, just the money to throw around like I used to. I had to self-medicate myself. I had to I had to have these self-conversations with myself. And I had to look at who I was prior to this and say, man, I can do that again. I'm going to get it again. And lo and behold, the crazy thing is, now in the space that I'm in, I make more money right now than what I made prior to then. And I'm just saying that to say that it doesn't matter how dark it's been for you since the pandemic. Keep a positive attitude. Maintain your manhood. Maintain your stride. Keep your shoulders up. You know what I mean? And just know, bro, if you lost it, you can get it again. And don't compare your bounce back post-pandemic to everybody else's. You know what I mean? Because us as men will do that. We'll play the comparison game. And we'll see, like some people did. They did turn up and create six-figure businesses. You know what I mean? You could be looking at this guy like, damn, the pandemic, you could be looking and saying that, well, pressure busts pipes and pressure is supposed to create diamonds, and say, well, damn, some people shining like diamonds through the pandemic and I'm still effed up. So like, where does that leave me? That just means that you're in your journey, you're in your moment, you don't know the other person's whole story, right? They may have turned up through the pandemic, but prior to the pandemic, they probably was broke as shit, and you probably had more money than them. They probably was down on their luck and messed up. You feel me? So everybody get their moment, and I also had to look at it from that aspect as well. I was like, well, this is my moment in life. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen so many other people struggle and come up out of it, including like my mother. I've struggled with my mother growing up. So, you know what I mean? Like in other videos or something, I'll go into detail on my childhood and just a lot of things that I seen growing up. You feel me? So I've seen other people struggle to the max and get up out of that. So what I had to do is just sit back and say, well, this is my moment. This is my time. This is my moment of truth. Everybody goes through, I don't care who it is. Jay-Z had a period or a point in time where it was, his shit was twisted. So everybody has that moment. You have to give yourself grace. Understand that this is something that's only happened twice in hundreds of years. And just know that you'll get it again because you had it. If you had it, you can get it again. And just, again, man, keep your spirit up. Everything is about energy, man. You gotta channel positive energy. And you gotta work on your time. Again, just because the world is acting like people aren't still suffering mentally, just because the world is acting like people aren't still out here in a state of shock, in a state of disarray, just twisted out here post-pandemic. It's some people who didn't lose anything financially, who lost loved ones, and that twisted them out. You know what I mean? To where as though they can't recover. People lost their mothers, their grandmothers, their grandfathers. You feel me? Or just anybody. You know what I mean? Anybody. It's all kinds of people that passed away. You gotta hold that shit down, bro. Hold it down. You feel me? And understand that it's still people out here going through what you're going through. We live in a world now where social media dictates the mood that the world is in. We think because social media not covering it or the media isn't talking about it that, oh, it just must be me all by myself. I'm the only one still depressed after COVID. You know what I mean? No, that shit's still lit. It's just it's not a hot topic no more. So they don't want to talk about it. You feel me? They don't want to talk about everybody that's still suffering. They don't want to talk about, you know, everybody who was balling through the pandemic, but now we living in a space where the economy, we dealing with inflation right now. So what do that matter? You feel me? Everybody want to emphasize that it was such a pandemic, only to be in an economy right now where inflation is through the roof, where they're advising you can't buy a house right now. People don't even want advising, don't even buy a car. Don't buy anything. You can't even buy a TV. Don't buy nothing right now. That's how f***ed up the economy is right now. You know what I mean? So all this pandemic, PPP loans and all that. And the crazy thing about it is, with the PPP loans, if you got too greedy, they locking motherfuckers up. They locking people up. So not only are we living in a space of inflation after these PPP loans where y'all taking all the money back through the economy, y'all locking us the fuck up. On top of the fact that we got the mental health, we dealing with everything that we lost. So it's a lot of shit going on right now, bro. And just hold your head, stay strong. And like I said, I'm right now in the space that I am in right now. I'm making more money now doing this than what I was making back then. You know what I mean? And you're not meant to do something. You're not meant to do things all the time for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? You have to have faith. Faith is stepping forward when you don't see the steps, when you don't see it there. Faith is reaching out for something that you can't see, but you know it's there. You know you can eventually grasp it. That's faith. If you can just see the shit and you play it safe, and you know, I can see where my feet is going, or I can see what my hand is about to grab. There's no faith in that, right? So if you are a religious person or you have any type of spiritual knowledge, you know, rely on that and know that whatever you lost wasn't meant for you, and whatever you gain will be better, because that will be where you belong. You have to trust your own journey. You have to trust that shit. You know what I mean? And again, give yourself grace. Understand, just because the world not talking about it doesn't mean that other people aren't going through it with you. And again, man, it's tough for men's mental health. Like, I see a lot of shit on the internet where it's like, you know, we're in this space now where I feel like the current state of mental health right now is being pacified by all this red pill, blue pill shit going on, right? It's a lot of frustration on the internet right now with men, and it seems like we aiming it all at women and all of this shit that's going on with women, where at the end of the day, us as men, it's a contradiction to blame women for anything, because us as men, if we are men, we understand that we dictate everything that's going on. So however women are acting, it's because of us. We dictate this shit. The first man that a young girl is going to meet is her father. We have to look at everything turns around to us. We're the masters, or we're the ones who supposed to be at the head and carrying this shit. At the same time, we complaining about women's flaws. Women follow us. You understand what I'm saying? So we the ones who gotta tighten the fuck up. You feel me? And I feel like right now I'm seeing like it's been like a boom on the internet with a lot of that shit, because men are placing their anger and their frustrations, and they're placing their anger and their frustrations in the wrong space, where it needs to be placed back on ourselves, not in a self-critical aspect, but just in a just having knowledge of self and what's going on with ourselves and the reasoning why we're feeling this way, and everything else will work itself out. I ain't got time. If you ain't got money in your pocket, I don't even know why you on the internet looking at any of that red pill shit, any of that shit anyway, because none of that applies to you. You need to get your mind right, get your shit together, give yourself grace. Don't think that you know, you're like on a time schedule. Because again, us as men, we advice can be toxic for us because it always seems like it's coupled or it's aligned with a particular time frame. Like, you gotta get up and hustle 100 hours a day. You gotta get up. You gotta have this amount of money. You gotta be lit. You gotta have all this shit going on. And no, bro, move at your pace. Keep your shit together. Keep your balance. Keep your spirit and keep your spirit high. Keep your mind focused on positive things. Keep your energy high, and reobtain everything you lost through the pandemic, man. You know what I mean? So that's my piece. That's my build, man. If you haven't already, like, comment, leave a comment. You know, men, I would love to hear, express some of the things you've lost, whether it be financially, whether it be mentally, emotionally, whether it be relationships. Express some of the things that you lost in the comments, and express the current state you're in, or explain how you got out of it. You know what I mean? And if you're still in that space, talk about plans or, self-improvements or things that you're, focusing on to get yourself out of that mode, to get your finances back, to get whatever it is you lost back. Set aside from loved ones, because that's something that we can never get back. You know what I mean? But, again, like, comment, subscribe. I'll holler at y'all, man. Kevin Wall. Peace.